So today we're still reading Academic Encounters, Chapter 3, Adolescence, and now we're going to move from our pre-reading activities to our reading activity. Now for our reading activity, we're going to use the SQ3R system to read the third section of the textbook, the third reading, which is about cognitive and social development in adolescence. So the SQ3R system we're going to use in order to give us a good idea of what may be in the text, what we can look for in the text, and then what we can review and learn from the text. So SQ3R stands for survey, S, question, Q, and read, recite, review, the 3 R's. So this is a process that is really handy for anyone, even native English speakers. So the 5-step process helps you become a more active reader, so you don't just pick up the text, read it, put it down. You'll perform the series of tasks and it'll have you actively thinking about the text, and hopefully you'll remember more from the text. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our text, reading number 3, and we're just going to look it over. Just look it over, look at the headings, the titles, the pictures, maybe scan for a little bit of information. I can see here it says identity formation. What do you see there, Mick?
Adolescent egocentrism.
Oh, wow, that could be interesting. Ooh, a table here.
Rather bitter looking.
An older person, yeah. Oh, Erik Erikson, according to the caption. So I think this one's going to talk about maybe the more psychological aspect of being a teen, do you think? And I think that could be interesting. So let's scroll back up. All right, SQ3R, we've surveyed, we've read and previewed the text, looked at the titles, and now we've reported back, so now we can do some questions. So what do you think they're going to tell us about the cognitive development of adolescence?
I would think that they're probably going to tell us about the really intense changes the brain goes through during that time.
Mm-hmm. I think everyone can say that between the ages of 12 and 20, they change a lot. Mm-hmm. I certainly did. So maybe they're going to talk about some studies, and maybe they're going to talk more about the stress that we mentioned. Mental health, that can be very important. And so I think this is going to be a really good reading to read. Okay, so now that we've read, we've questioned, now we can read. So we're going to start by reading aloud. And Mick, would you like me to do the first paragraph, or do you want to give it a go?
I'll give it a go.
All right, go ahead.
Reading 3. Cognitive and Social Development in Adolescence. Adolescence is a developmental period in which, according to Piaget, one is now able to think abstractly and to imagine, to think about what is, and to ponder what might be. This new, higher level of mental operations often gets turned toward self-analysis, toward a contemplation of oneself in a social context. In this section, we'll examine 3 issues related to cognitive and social processes in adolescent development: identity formation, adolescent egocentrism, and the influence of family.
All right. Very good job, Mick. So as we can see here, let's move on to the next section. Identity formation. Adolescents give the impression of being great experimenters. They experiment with hairstyles, music, religions, drugs, sexual outlets, fad diets, part-time jobs, part-time relationships, and part-time philosophies of life. In fact, it often seems that teenagers' commitments are on a part-time basis. They are busily trying things out, doing things their way, off on a grand search for truth. This perception of adolescents as experimenters is not without foundation. It is consistent with the view that one of the major tasks of adolescence is the resolution of an identity crisis. The struggle to define and integrate the sense of who one is, what one wants to do in life, and what one's attitudes, beliefs, and values should be. During adolescence, we come to grips with many questions. Who am I? Where am I going with my life? What is the point of it all? Needless to say, these are not trivial questions. A person's search for his or her identity may lead to conflicts. Some of these conflicts may be resolved very easily. Some continue into adulthood. So there's a lot more to this reading, and I'm going to have us all switch into the reading silently mode, because that's also a very important skill. So we can read this silently. Just let me know when you're done.
Okay, I'm finished.
Alright, so now let's review since we've done some reciting and some reading. So some review. What did you get out of this chapter? What did you get out of this reading?
Sort of a basic overview of the stages of adolescence and the stresses and questions that are dealt with during that time.
What part did you find most interesting? What was your favorite part of the reading?
Probably identity formation.
Identity formation? Let's look back up at that. Identity formation. I liked that part too. I think identity formation is really interesting. I mean, everyone goes through it, and everyone goes through it differently. I think that's one of the important things about adolescence. So now, having read the chapter, having reviewed the chapter, having used the SQ3R method, we had an idea of what to look for in the reading before we started reading. We had an idea of what we were going to do with the information. We held on to the information so that we could review it at the end. And now, if we wanted to take notes or write a little summary, we'd be way more prepared than if we just picked it up and read it. So, SQ3R, it's great.